Hello. Today we're discussing Parsha Reach. As we discussed in the previous Parsha, Moshe continues his 36 days long sermon, last sermon to the new young generation of Israelites, children of Israel. So he informs the Israelites that they can be recipients of either blessings or curses. Blessings they receive if they obey God's commandments, and curses they will receive if they disobey God's commandments. He further instructs them that to proclaim blessings, they need to do that to Mount Gerizim, and curses to Mount Ebal. The exact procedure will be discussed later in, I believe it's in Parsha Kitavo. A little bit later we will discuss this exact procedure. Then Moshe commands them to destroy all idols in the promised land of the other nations which live in there currently, because they must be punished for whatever disobedience to Hashem's commands they had. So, and Moshe instructs them that they must destroy absolutely everything, including the buildings, the whole, all idols, and they should not take even any valuables out from there, including gold and silver. All of this must be destroyed. He informs the nation that in the future God will designate a specific location, which we know it will be Jerusalem, where he will choose to rest his presence. All sacrifices must be offered at this location offered by Hashem, nominated by Hashem, basically. Although it is forbidden to offer sacrifices in any other location than the one designated by God, it is permitted, however, to slaughter cattle for consumption, not for sacrifices, just to eat. But blood may never ever be eaten by a Jew, because the consumption of blood is contrary to God's wishes, and there are very serious explanations, because we Jews believe that part of the soul of anything, whether it's a human being or an animal or even a tree or a shrub or even a stone, right, well, is in the liquid part of the person. Okay, I don't know where the neshama rests in the stone, and probably in the liquids flowing through the trees and shrubs, probably it rests in there for them. But for animals and people, the place where the nefesh, the lowest part of the neshama, rests is the blood. And this is why it's forbidden for Jews to consume blood. Then Moshe warns the Israelites not to be lured by the local people practices, by the practices of the Canaanites, Amorites, or whoever is in there in Israel, right? And to remain true to the Torah, neither by adding nor subtracting from the laws of Torah. And Moshe tells them that a person prophesying and claiming to be a prophet, even if he performs miracles, but if his instructions are contrary to the Torah, if he calls people to worship some other gods or worship idols, he must not be trusted and must be put to death. This in this parsha, in this part of the parsha, Moshe tells the Jewish people that even a person who is not claiming to be a prophet, but entices others to commit, or idolatry, I should say, he must be put to death, and he must not be listened to, right? Now, you see, the problem is that idolatry had a huge level of drive amongst the Jewish people in those days, and particularly in the time of the first temple and second temple. A lot, even some kings were succumbed to the desire of idolatry. It's hard for us to understand this, and there are very good reasons to that. Because in the end of the second temple, the sages asked Hashem to eliminate the desire for idolatry. And it was done. But as we know, in Shamaim, in the spiritual world, when you take out something, you must fill that space with something else. So this desire for idolatry was replaced with another desire. Unfortunately, it's another idol. It's the love of money and individualism. We will talk about it in a few minutes. But we all know exactly what I'm talking about, how much many people love money. Money becomes a single purpose of their life. And this is what we're talking about. It's like a god to those people, which is an idol. It's not a true God. It's an idol. Well, we'll come to that in a few minutes. Then Moshe reminds the Jewish people that as God's children we are forbidden to deface our bodies with tattoos or via any other forms of mutilation of the body. And then the section provides information about the kosher animals and unkosher birds, fowl. We also given signs to distinguish between the kosher animals and identify the kosher fish and the non-kosher fish. The section concludes with prohibitions against eating meat from an animal which was not properly slaughtered and against cooking meat in milk. Then Parsha changes the message basically, and we start discussing charity, because Moshe instructs the Israelites that after giving a tenth of one's crop to the Levite, a tenth of the remainder, which is called the second tithe, is to be given and eaten within the confines of Jerusalem. Provisions are made here for people who live far away from Jerusalem, to whom it would be difficult to bring all this crop and food to transport it to Jerusalem, that they may sell it wherever they are and then take the money to Jerusalem and buy food over there and spend the money on food and drinks in Jerusalem. There are 3-year teething cycles. After the conclusion of each cycle, we are commanded to purge our homes from the overdue teething. So if there is some food left from the previous year, we must take it to Jerusalem and eat it together with people in Jerusalem, and we must give it to the intended recipients, and we recite a special brief prayer. Then Moshe commands the Israelites to designate even every 7th year as Shemitah. And during this year, the creditors must forgive their outstanding loans. The section then discusses the obligation to forgive those loans, as well as to give charity to the poor, and to give charity to the poor with a happy heart. And this is an important point. We will discuss that as well in a few minutes. And to lend the money, if necessary, to the poor people, even if it's close to the Shemitah year, which is looming, coming. Let's say it's in year 5 or 6 of the Shemitah cycle. So if you lend the money and the person doesn't pay back, you lose the money. That's it, guaranteed. So, and on every 7th year, a Jewish slave must be, after 6 years, a Jewish slave must be released and must be given a very generous severance payment, gifts on his departure. The Parsha finishes with the statement regarding the male firstborn of kosher cattle, which must be consecrated and given to the Kohen to eat. If the animal is blemishless, it is first offered as a sacrifice in the temple. And the Torah reading concludes with the discussions regarding the three festivals, Passover, Shavuot, and Sukkot. And in addition to some laws regarding each of these festivals, individually we are commanded to rejoice during these festivals, and all males must be in attendance at the Holy Temple during these holidays. Now, let's look together what Moshe is talking about, or this parsha is telling us regarding wealth, charity, and basically conducting charity in happiness. And there are a number of explanations. What does it mean, being charitable in happiness? And I think we need to understand this, and let's go and try to appreciate what Torah is telling us. Biblical Israel from the time of Joshua and until destruction of the Second Temple was predominantly agricultural society. And accordingly, it was through the agriculture that the Torah pursues the religious and social programs. And this program has got fundamental elements which are relevant even to us today, thousands of years later. The first aspect of the Torah is alleviation of poverty. And for many reasons, the Torah accepts the basic principles of the so-called market economy, capitalism. But through market economics, they are good for creation of wealth. But they are not so good for even distribution or equitable distribution of wealth. So the Torah's social legislation is aimed to lay the foundation of the social state, of the social system, in which deep poverty and degrading of the human quality of life should not take place. That's what Torah pursues. That's the aim here of this parsha, explaining to people how to behave. Hence, the institution, this institution of the parts of the harvest to be left in the fields for the poor, like leket, shikach, and peach, which is the fallen ears of the grain, the forgotten sheaf, and the corners of the field, which the farmer, whatever grain falls on the ground, he must not pick it up, and a sheaf forgotten in the field, he must not pick up, and the corners of the field, he never really moves even the harvests the bread, the wheat, or whatever it is planted in there. And then there is the seventh year, the Shemitah year, when private fields no longer belong to their owner. Everybody, they become like public land, and anybody is allowed to go in and to collect whatever fruits and vegetables and whatever is growing there for their own consumption, right? And that is part of the system, of the social system, trying to provide the equitable distribution of wealth. And then there is Mazer Ani, the teeth of the poor, which is given in the third and the 6th year cycles of the 7th year of the Shemitah. And except that, then there is the Yovel, which is the 50th year, and when everybody is released from debts on every 7th year, but on the 50th year, and the slaves are going free, and what takes place on every 7th year, basically, and then every 50th, on the 50th year, is the all ancestral property which was sold during the 50-year cycle restored back to the original owners. So, like, the economy goes to basically to the default position. So, This is the first principle of Torah here, that no one should be desperately poor. There are basically, in this part, we are looking at three different principles. The first one, as I just said, is that no one should be desperately poor. The second one, which includes the charity, or not charity, the taxation, which includes the tax paid to the Levites, the Terumah and Mazer Rishon, the priestly portion and the first teeth, with the support respectively for the priests and for the Levites. The Kohanim and the Levites were the religious elite within the nation of biblical times, and they provided not only religious services, they provided, they were at the heart of Jewish philosophy, psychology, and religion, that's for sure. But other essential functions which they fulfilled were education, administration of justice, and as teachers and judges, they were absolutely integral part of the state of Israel at that time, of Israeli culture of that time. The third one, the third principle which the Parsha is trying to convey to us is more personal and spiritual. There were laws as such as the bringing the first fruits to Jerusalem and the three pilgrimage festivals, Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot. And as they marked the seasons of the agricultural year, and they had to do with driving home the lessons of gratitude and humility. The idea, the surface idea was that basically that the land belongs to God. And we people are merely the tenants and the guests. So yes, the farmer makes an effort and plants the fruits and whatever he plants in the soil, but Hashem sends the rain, the sun, and provides the earth, the minerals from the earth, the food from the earth, and produces the food subject to his blessings. So that concept required a regular reminder to the people of who is actually keeping us alive, who is caring about all of us, right? And these festivals were those regular reminders. The truth of the matter is that the rulers and the elite in particularly in every society, forget very quickly that their role is to serve the people. And instead they expect the people to serve them. And they start thinking that only they are the ones who basically make people happy and wealthy and healthy, etc., totally forgetting about God. And this is how, in many instances, right through many civilizations over the years, the nations at the very height of their success started to decline, laying ground to their future defeat and basically annihilation. Think about it. Think about it, what is happening when the elite and the rulers of the society, of the civilization, forget who is who and who serves whom. That's the beginning of the end. All this makes one law in our parsha, the law of second teeth. Hard to understand. Why? Because as we noted above, in the third and the sixth year of the cycle, the second teeth was given to the poor. Fine. However, the first and the second and the fourth and the fifth year, it was to be taken to Jerusalem. And eaten there in a state of purity. And this is what the Parsha says. You shall eat the teeth of your grain, new wine and olive oil, and the firstborn of your herds and the flocks in the presence of the Lord your God at the place he will choose as a dwelling for his name, so that you may learn to revere God, your God, always. The problem becomes obvious. The second teeth did not go to the poor, in this case, in year 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6, 1, 2, 4, 5, and 7, did not go to the poor, or to the priest, or to the Levite. So it was not part of the first or the second principle. It may have been part of the third principle, to remind the farmer and the land that the land belonged to God. And he only does the certain actions which are necessary to provide the food for the people. But it's a little bit sort of hard to accept, hard to understand. And then we found Rabbi Jonathan Sachs found this absolutely incredible explanation given by Maimonides. And Maimonides says the following: the second teeth was commanded to be spent on food in Jerusalem. In this way, the owner was compelled to use it for eating and drinking. He must have easily been induced to give it gradually away. This rule brought multitudes together in one place and strengthened the bond of love and brotherhood among the children of Israel. What is going on? Maimonides says that the second teeth served the social purpose. It strengthened the civil society. It created bonds of connectedness and friendship among the people. It encouraged visitors to share the blessings of the harvest with the others, and strangers would meet and become friends. And there would be an atmosphere of camaraderie and amongst the pilgrims, and there would be a sense of shared citizenship, common belonging, and collective identity of one people, one country, one state. It's like a huge Farbrengen. You know, the Chabad people know what Farbrengen is all about. Drinking and eating and being merry and being happy and sharing ideas. Indeed, Maimonides says something similar about the festivals themselves. And he says the following: the use of keeping festivals is plain. Man derives benefit from such assemblies. The emotions produced renew the attachment to religion. They lead to friendly and social connections amongst the people. The atmosphere in Jerusalem, says Maimonides, was encouraged public spiritedness. Food could not be sold, could be kept for the next year. It could not be kept for the next year, and therefore must have been eaten right there and then. And especially the Torah specifies that the Levite and the stranger and the orphan and the widow must be present at the tables together with everybody else. What this is basically is creating the feeling of belonging of people of one country. Writing about America in 1830s, Alexis Tocqueville found that he had to coin a new word for the phenomenon he encountered there and saw as one of the dangers of democratic society. And the word was individualism. He defined individualism as a mature and calm feeling which disposes each member of the community to sever himself from the mass of his fellows and to draw apart with his family and friends, leaving society at large to its own devices, on itself. And Tocqueville believed that democracy encouraged individualism, which we know is true. As a result, people would leave the business of common good entirely to the government. And now this is called Social Security and Department of Human Services, which could become even more powerful and eventually will start threatening freedom itself. You remember the motto of the 80s, greed is good. Remember that? And this is exactly what I'm talking about. We all know that, for instance, the Greek economy was in state of collapse in 2008. 2008, yeah. And many people were wondering why. It was part of European Union, and people supposedly pay taxes, and the system. Why Greece, out of all countries, is having such severe financial problems? And then the economist Benedict Herman done a study. He tested people in different cities through the world to see whether they were geographical or cultural variations regarding charity in each different city. He used a game called Free Rider, which is like a monopoly. The only difference is in there that people must give part of their profits to the common good, to pay taxation, like pay tax, but on ongoing basis. But a free rider is the person who refuses to do that. And there are some rules how they can be penalized for this, but they still have got, because of their mentality, they don't want to contribute to the charity, to the well-being of the society. To cut a long story short, he found out that in cities like Boston, Copenhagen, Bonn, Seoul, the voluntary contributions, people playing that game, were common, and the kitty, the pot of the contributions was very high. However, in countries or in cities like Istanbul, Riyadh and Minsk, the contributions were very low, much lower. But he attributed that to a less developed economy, and the general standard of living of people was much poorer. However, what he found out is that in Athens, in Greece, regardless of the state of economy, the free riders were absolutely common, right? And they refused to contribute charity to the kitty. Why? Your guess is as good as mine. But in Athens, in Greece, they do not pay taxes. They create a huge black market, and this is why the economy of the country was in dire straits as it was. And that means that the public support for common good is, when it's low, the society fails to unite and the economy fails to grow. And this is when the society starts deteriorating. Hence the brilliance of Maimonides so many years ago, when he is talking about the second thesis, excited and create that the second thesis creates the excitement and the social capital, meaning creating bonds of trust and mutual altruism among the people, among the population of the country, and which comes through sharing food and drink together with strangers at the holy place like Jerusalem. Loving God helps make us better citizens and more generous people, thus reducing the individualism that eventually makes democracies fail. Me, my desires, my well-being, and all the rest I don't care about is what kills democracies. And most important, the generosity and altruism make us happy. As we serve Hashem in happiness, when we are charitable, we are happy. And on that note, I would like to say to you goodbye, and be charitable and be happy. See you in the next Parsha. Goodbye.